Next, we have with us Excellency Al-Matirat, Acting Head of the Central of the Public and Private Partnership Unit of Ministry of Economic and Finance, to be the speaker, provide us more background on the information on the public-private partnership framework, and highlight the key feature of the PPP law, and what is the implication in the context of the digital government. So please, Excellency.
So thank you, Excellency Moderator. Good afternoon to everyone. So I appreciate having the opportunity speaking with other distinguished panelists here. So I think other panelists have been talking about digital. So my presentation will focus on the public-private partnership. So this kind of mechanism has been part of the digital infrastructure development as well. So without further ado, can you put up my slide, please? So my slide presentation will focus on cover 4 aspects. Can you go to the content, please? So I will give you some background of the development of PPP. Before the law on PPP was approved, and then I give you some feature which are commonly seen in the PPP project, and I will give you the overview of the law on PPP. What are the difference between the law on the concession and law on PPP, and then I will end my presentation with the standard operating procedure, how to develop, prepare, and govern PPP contracts. So move on, please. Next. So in the late 1990s, most of the projects in the energy sector and the aviation, they have been prepared under the ad hoc mechanism without the law on concession, either on the law on PPP. So and as it developed with the support from IFC, the Royal government have prepared the draft law on concession, and it was approved by 2007. And the law itself, it's just like a traditional BOT. It only specify user payment only. Does not cover the availability payment or any other hybrid payment in PPP transaction. So in 2007 we have the law on concession, but we don't have any standard operating procedure to implement this law. So without the sub-degree to implement the SOP, the government is taking the ad hoc mechanism as we did before the law on concession. And during this period, the government has identified some challenges using the ad hoc mechanism. So in the PP policy, the government has identified the challenges, and one of the challenges is to review the law on concession. What has been lacking? What are the gaps to fill in, so we can have a interlink system to prepare and govern the PPP projects. And during the same period, the government also set out the public investment management system reform strategy to govern the public investment from both of from every source of financing, either using the national budget, ODA, or PPP. And then later on, recently, the law on PPP was adopted. This law will give you overall guideline and principle to govern the PPP project from the identification stage until the project monitoring. Next, please. So before I go on, I would like to have the same understanding what is PPP. So we have so if you look around the world, there are different definitions of PPP, but we pick up one definition in our law. So our PPP refer to a long-term agreement between state and the private partner to provide the public infrastructure and public service. within a specific period of time. So our law has specified operational period at least 5 years. And under this agreement, the private partner shall invest and share the risk with the government. And their benefit from the project has to be stipulated in the PPP contract. That's the key concept. So if we have the same understanding on this definition, then we can look at what are the key aspects in the PPP projects. Next one, please. So the key aspect in the PPP project. So the first one is this must be a long-term agreement. So it allows the private partner to recoup their investment. So in our law, we specify at least 5 years of operational period. And the private partner has to share the risk between the government. So there are some preferred risks that the government will take, and there are some risks that the private partner can best manage. And their remuneration, the private partner can receive from the project, must be stipulated in the PPP contract. And at the same time, we require the private partner to cover the cost of the project development, design, financing, construction, operation, and maintenance of the projects. And usually in a PPP project, it is a project financing. So there is some requirement to form the SPV, the special purpose vehicle, or SPC, special purpose company. And our procurement is focused on the output specification, unlike the public procurement, which is their main focus is in input specification. For example, in the public procurement, they require to build a hospital building. So they will specify the square, the size of the building they require, how many floors they need, like 2 or 3 floors in the public procurement. But in our PPP, we only specify that the output that we want. Increase the waiting time for the patient from 1 hour to half an hour, and it can accommodate 500 beds. Then we leave the innovation to the private partner to build the hospital building. Next, please. And in 2021, so our law on PPP has been adopted, with the main objective is to promote the management of the public-private partnership mechanism to deliver the public infrastructure and public service. That's the key point. Next, please. So our law comprises of 14 chapters and 49 articles and with 2 annexes. I won't go to the detail of the law, but I will give you some quick overview. What is it about? So the chapter 1 on the general provision will give you the objective and the goal of the law, and at the same time the scope of the law that which apply to. And chapter 2 will determine who is eligible to enter to PPP contract. And chapter 3 will talk about the competent authority. And then we have seen the PPP cycle is used to the line ministry. We also introduce the PPP project cycle from identification stage until the monitoring stage. And we also offer clear financial support mechanism in PPP. For example, if the line ministry would like to take the project forward, they may request for project development fund to undertake the feasibility study. If the project is economically viable but lack of financial viable, they may seek the support from the government, like a VGF fund, viability gap funding. And we also introduced the procurement manual in the chapter 5, selection of private partner, and we provide the key principle to be included in the PP contract. And the investment incentive would be follow the law on investment. And we also introduce the requirement on the reporting and introduce the contract period, how we terminate the contract, and how, if it is BOT, how the private partner will deliver the project back to the government. And we also have a transitional period. For example, some PPP contract or concession agreement are signed under the law on the concession, but the new law will notify the law on concession, replace this with the law on PPP. So we keep them, we keep the existing contract survive and still valid. and that a quick summary of the provision in the PPP law. Next, please. So as I mentioned in chapter 3, we are talking about competent, chapter 2 about the competent institution who play a key role in the PPP process. So Ministry of the MEF will act as the gatekeeper for all PPP projects. So any project that coming from the line minister, flying ministry, either from the private partner, they have to go through the gatekeeper to the MEF before going through the government for the selection of the private partner. And one of the special role of the MEF here, the MEF also review the government support which required under PPP project. So any state support have to go through the MEF for review and approve. And next, please. And the implementing agency refer to the national and subnational and to the SOE. They can be the implementing agency. And they are authorized to sign the PPP contract on behalf of the government, and they have the main responsibility for leading this project preparation and from identification until signing and monitoring the project itself. So IA has a very key responsibility in the process. Next, please. So. In our law on PPP, we also specify what are the eligible sector that can pursue as a PPP. So in this, if you look at bullet number 2, public infrastructure related telecom, post and information technology and digital technology are applicable to pursue as a PPP. Next, please. So before any investor or the line ministry would like to apply to develop the project as PPP, they may have to look at 5 important criteria. First, if the project has to be under the purview, the responsibility of the line ministry. For example, if the road they have to be under the MPWT. If it's a digital infrastructure like telecom, it should be under MPTC. And the sector that to be proposed as a project must be under the eligible sector. And the project is capable of sharing risk between the government and the private partner. That's another criteria. And the fourth criteria is that the project itself has the attractiveness to the private partner, meaning they can access the investment from the private partner. And the last one, as I mentioned earlier, the project shall have the operational period at least 5 years. So when you sign the contract with the private partner, at least we have 5-year period in the PPP contract. So it allows the private partner to recoup their investment. That's the rationale behind this criteria. Next, please. Next. So we are under PPP law, we are allow different model to be invested by the investor. So we have BOT, BOO, and BOO, and other applicable law which are allowed by the government. Next, please. Next, please. So under the process of PPP project, we have a solicited process and unsolicited process. The solicited process is a process that initiated by the line ministry itself. So the process, the line ministry have to identify the potential project and propose it to the MEF for the selection as a potential PPP project, and then get the funding from the MEF or other partner to carry out the feasibility study under project preparation. Once the study has completed, then they can seek approval from MEF if there are any request for the government support, and then we approve the feasibility study and seek the government's approval to put this project into procurement stage and selection of the private partner and negotiate the contract with the private partner and get the approval from the head of government to sign the PPP contract and put the PPP contract into implementation. That's the process for solicited projects, which is initiated by the government. Next, please. And we also open to unsolicited proposal, which is initiated by the investor and developer. But we put some criteria there. So if the private partner want to bring the project to the government, those projects must be new concept, involve innovation. Then that's the first criteria that the private partner can bring to the government. For example, the expressway is the new concept of building a road in Cambodia. So we accept it as an unsolicited proposal. But however, if the line ministry would like to pursue this project, they have to seek the approval from the government through the MEF. And if the government approve that we can accept this proposal, the implementing agency seek the approval from the government to set up the working group to prepare the framework agreement or any other agreement that this officially recognize the cooperation between the state and the private proponent to carry out the project study and develop the project. But take note that all the expense associated during the project development has to be borne by the private proponent. And then after the feasibility study is completed by the private proponent, the implementing agency and together with the MEF may arrange the independent agency or any consulting firm to carry out the due diligence on the result of the feasibility study. And based on the due diligence of the feasibility study, the implementing agency and the MEF may seek the approval from the government for the selection of private partner, either through the competitive bidding or through the direct negotiation with the private proponent. So, and that's the process how we handle the USP. I think it's quite similar to that of the World Bank has been proposed. And for the cost of to carry out the due diligence, the MEF may use the PDF, as I mentioned earlier. Government have a financial support for PPP projects, so we may use the fund to hire the expert or the consulting firm to carry out the due diligence on behalf of the government. Next, please. And that's the last part of my presentation. So in 2007, the law on concession were approved, but there is no SOP to have the line agency and the government to prepare and analyze the proposal from the investor. So for the next, for under the law on PPP, we will requires the preparation of the SOP. So we divided the SOP into 3 volumes. The first volume, we're talking about the policy of the government and procedure to be followed to prepare and develop PPP projects. And then we have the volume 2, the guideline consisting of a guideline. These guidelines are developed just to support the MEF and the line ministry, how to carry out the analysis. So mostly you will hire the transaction advisor to carry out the feasibility study, but how do you analyze it? You will use this guideline to have you to analyze the study by the transaction advisor. And at the end, we have the volume 3 is the procurement manual, which have the implementing agency to recruit the private partner and other consultant to have them. So we have a complete volume from the identification stage until the monetary stage. So we have a complete picture how to govern the PPP projects. Thank you.